Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now we'll be talking about the local government autonomy. So the federal government of Nigeria has instituted a legal action against governors of the 36 states of the Federation and the Supreme Court over alleged misconduct in the administration of the local government areas. The federal government, in the suit filed by the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Prince Lateef Fagbemi-San, is seeking full autonomy for all local government areas in the country as the third tier of government. It specifically prayed the Apex Court to issue an order prohibiting state governors from embarking on unilateral, arbitrary, and unlawful dissolution of democratically elected local government leaders. I mean, do we even have to ask, for this to be done? Well, the government also prayed for an order permitting the funds standing in the credits of local government to be directly channeled to them from the federal account, that's the Federation account, in line with the provision of the Constitution, against the alleged unlawful joint account created by the governors. Besides, the federal government prayed to the Supreme Court for an order stopping governors from further constituting caretaker committees to run the affairs of the local government against the constitutionally organized or recognized and guaranteed democratic system. So we have in the studio a senior advocate of Nigeria and professor of law, Maxwell Gidado. He is the former dean of Faculty of Law, Nasarawa State University, and also the Pro-Chancellor of Adamawa State University currently. Good morning. It's good to have you.
Good morning, Smile. Nice to see you.
It's good to have you. So let's talk about this situation happening. So the local government autonomy has been a critical issue that people have been pushing for, but then right now it has gotten to a point where the government or the governors are not willing to just release this power, reduce the power, and give these people their power, and the federal government are taking them to court. What is your take on this situation unraveling?
Yes, this issue of the autonomy of local governments is not a new one. It has been a recurrent decimal as far as the political history of this country is concerned. And if one may even take it back in context, if you talk of local governments, now when we inherited the local government system from Britain, we modified it, and then the major local government reform came under the Obasanjo military era, 1976, the Dasuki panels, local government panels report. So that was what actually unified the local government system. And in doing that, they were mindful of the fact that even though we adopted a federation, a federal system of government, but our federating units are the states and not local governments. So local governments were supposed to be managed by the states. That was the conceived idea. Then we now dovetailed into the present extant 1999 Constitution. And the 1999 Constitution rather was a rehash of the 1979 Constitution. It equally gave local governments a recognition, like Section 7 very clearly said, a system of local government by democratically elected local government councils is in this Constitution guaranteed. Now, that was the recognition that the Constitution gives to the local government system. But the remaining part that says, accordingly, the state governments are to see, by stating of laws, state laws, to see to the establishment, structure, administration, finance, and the running of the local governments. Now, this is where the problem starts. Because at that level, the Constitution conceded these powers to the states. And it was from there that the governors got this power. So in one of the grounds before the Supreme Court, that phrase or that statement that state governments just unilaterally took over the concept of running the local governments as opposed to what is in the Constitution is not correct. Because I have not traced where they got their powers. Then secondly, As far as the financial aspect is concerned, if you go to section 162, subsection 6 of the 1999 Constitution, it talks about all monies coming from the federation account that ought to get to local governments has to be channeled towards the state joint local government account. It's there in the Constitution. So what am I saying? The point is this: if you want to tackle these problems, where I agree the court can intervene, the Supreme Court can give an interpretation, is as regards the aspect of constituting caretaker or this unelected, undemocratically appointed local government chairmen and councillors. That is where the Supreme Court can pronounce on it. But as far as the other aspects are concerned, this has to go by means of a constitutional amendment. With the ongoing constitutional amendment exercise being instituted from the National Assembly, it is this 10th Assembly, the onus is on the 10th Assembly to try and see that they amend these very sections, the section 7 and section 162, 6, removing those toga that is making the state governments to have a grip on the local government. But the danger there is, if you do so and you don't do it carefully, you'll be creating a situation where we will have a federation with local governments as federating units of the state's federating units. That will also stain the major structure of our government, of our system, and even the Constitution. Because the Constitution recognizes the states as the federating units and not the local governments. It was premised on the fact that the operators of the Constitution would abide by the principles of doing things in accordance with the law. If it were to be properly, even with the joint account, if it were to be transparently operated, their monies come, even though it comes through the joint account, it's meant for regulation. And the process of the regulation, it never said the governor should take some funds from the local government and channel it into states, running of the states. Give them, if there are some agreements they had, as far as some deductions, adhere to them. Then whatever remains, the balance, channel it through their local government accounts. But in practice, I won't accuse all governors. Some governors are very guilty.
Majority of governors.
Exactly. Majority of governors are guilty of this. So I want to harp on the word autonomy. When you talk of autonomy, autonomy means you're being independent. You're being self-operating. And the danger of clamoring for that autonomy for local governments, as I said, is the fact that you don't want to put the local governments on the same pedestal with federal and states, which, as far as our nascent federal system of government is concerned, it goes against that principle. So, if you ask me for the solution, to this, what I can just advise is that, one, state governors should avoid a situation where there will be a vacuum. And this vacuum also can be traced to the Constitution. The Constitution never stated a specific term that a local government administration can run. So that's why you see some arrogating them.
I wanted to ask you that. I wanted to ask the point that what is the main responsibility and role of the local government? So if the Constitution is not really stating it, then how can the people that, are pushing for at least autonomy for this local government be able to distinct what the job are from what the government or the state governors should do?
Yes, incidentally, local governments have a lot of functions, to perform. The only thing is that they're not spelled out in the Constitution, but they are being guided by state laws. If you get a typical state law of any of the states in consonance with the provisions of section 7(2), and that gives powers, to the states to administer and run by creating laws that would administer the local governments. So if you check those laws, any of the states, you, for instance, find out that their role is, one, to collect taxes. Television taxes, radio taxes, markets, They run markets. They're to operate and regulate markets. They are to run and organize stuff like registration of births, registration of death, registration of marriages. They can also construct roads, culverts, bridges. You know, it is stated that there are a lot of functions that local governments do. Even if when you talk of the fact that if you look at even the aspect of culture, the furthering of or promotion of culture and tradition of the people. Because when you look at the fact that local governments are the governments that are nearest, you know, to the people.
Indeed.
It is the local, from the name local, derived from Latin, locus. It means place, government of the place. Place refers to either a town, a group of clans, or group of villages. It is supposed to be a means of bringing the government nearer to the people.
To the people. I mean, speaking on that, Professor, Nigerians are feeling like they are not really being understood and heard by the government. The government does not really understand them. And you and I know how it is. When you're an elite, you cannot relate with someone who is from, the poor background, because you do not know what you're going through. You cannot relate on that. So proponents of the local government autonomy are pushing out the narrative, saying it argues that this empowers communities. It creates more foster development and also tailored to the local needs. So can you elaborate more on the necessity and benefits of local government attaining their own autonomy at this point?
I quite agree with proponents of some bit of independence or autonomy, if I may use that word again, for the local government councils. The reason is not far-fetched. When you talk of federal government, the picture that comes to the mind of everybody is Abuja, the FCT. That's the resident of the president, the ministers, the National Assembly, etc. Even the FCT has its own area councils, the 6 area councils. So, but when you now move further to states, what also is being conjured in the mind of everybody is that you're talking of the state capitals. The state capitals, which the distance from Abuja to some state capitals is quite wide. The margin is so large that when you now get to the 774 local governments that make up the country, majority of Nigerians, over 90% of Nigerians, reside in these rural villages, these rural areas. Hence, the challenge is how to bring governance and policy and administration of government to the grassroots. And that the local government system is that vehicle. Through which this very development can reach to the local man and to the villagers. So if you don't handle that very well, you now see all the incidents of people flooding into Abuja. When they come in here and see that stable, water supply, stable power supply, the roads, are all crispy and shining, beautiful cars, who would want to go back to the village? But if you take semblance of what you see in Abuja to the villages, you will see people coming in. And there will be that drastic reduction in people flooding to the FCT to come and eke out a living.
Yeah.
So that's the essence. The essence of the local government systems are to bring governance, to bring development, to bring, you can imagine a situation where you mention any village, and you go to such a village, they have very good road networks, they have very good markets, they have very good lighting system, schools, well built, teachers, very good, well-trained teachers teaching them. They have primary health centers where if they have all these common diseases, they could get there and be treated. And also, when you look at the death of these development indices I've mentioned, then that makes the place a derelict. There will be nobody that will live in such a place.
Indeed.
So that's the main bane of a local government system. It is believed that with all the trillions that is being trickled or being sent down from federation account every month, one expects to see some bit of development in these local governments.
Indeed. Let's talk about this federal government. So in the 36 state governors, where they seek full autonomy at this point. I mean, even though you've been pointing, based on your point, you've been saying at least some level of it. I don't know why you're skeptical about the rest, but I'll definitely want to ask you on that one. Okay. But then one of the things that has also been a cause of concern is how the governors can easily, when they were elected, just as the local councillors, but then all of a sudden they can retrieve that power when it was not an appointment that they made, but the people making the choice for themselves. How do you think we've got to this point? Whether the governors feel we have that power to remove someone who has been legally elected?
Yes, that is the major challenge. As I mentioned in my first statement, if the Constitution had stated it categorically, the way the president and the governors are having their fixed tenure, no one day can be exceeded for any governor or any president. As far as the Constitution says, you are to be in office for 4 years, and there should be elections periodically at the end of every 4 years. And there is no such a statement in the Constitution as far as local governments and the tenure is concerned.
It's concerned. I mean, speaking also on the Constitution, is there any place in the Constitution that says, that the governors should be the one to insert or to elect the councillors?
No. There's even no provision. It gives them the power to put in place the State Independent Electoral Commission to conduct elections. So it's not as if it's the state.
People are really not
exactly
on as well.
So some are clamoring that because of what happens. I mean, as far as the history of state election commissions are concerned, or bodies are concerned in the states, there has never been a state where the non-ruling party wins. If there are, the fraction or the percentage is abysmal. Otherwise, almost all the ruling parties, have been winning in all their local government conducted elections. So that's why people are clamoring that it should be removed, it should be abolished, it should be scrapped. Rather, let the Independent National Electoral Commission at the federal level be allowed to conduct elections into local government councils.
If all of this is known, I mean, why is the federal government going to court rather than, of course, sending this for at least a bill reading to the National Assembly to change it?
Yes, that was why I told you. In some of the grounds or reasons for taking these issues to the Supreme Court are not necessary. It will just be an academic exercise. Because, as I said, the root causes are in the Constitution. The governors will defend themselves. They will defend them. The only place where they may not be able to defend themselves very well is the aspect you mentioned, which is about their coming in and dissolving a democratically elected local government system. And the problem has always been, too, that when a governor does that, nobody challenges him. We have so many things, that goes on in this country against the Constitution. But when people are silent, it goes on without any.
I don't think at this point, on behalf of Nigerians, it will be said Nigerians are silent. Nigerians talk about these things. The media tends to always repeat and echo this kind of situations that should not be done. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it all boils down to the political will of the people at the top.
That's what I'm saying. The best way to ginger the governors and to stop them from doing this is by going to court. Any day a governor dissolves a democratically elected local government council. If ever any governor is challenged, that will serve as a precedent. Another way of also silencing all this is by a constitutional amendment where it will be stated, for instance, that all local government councils shall have a tenure of 3 years. Okay? If it is stated there in the Constitution, there's no way a governor can come and tinker with that. But as it is, with the lacuna there, the gap, some even give them a year.
It becomes a
some 2 years. So there's no uniformity. And they get that window because of the lacuna in the Constitution. But if it had been spelled out specifically that all local government councils shall be in office for a period of 3 years and elections be conducted, there will be no way you can stop that train.
No, all right, Professor, let's talk about the challenges. No. You also reiterated the fact that this has been echoed and re-echoed, that at this point, local government should have at least a bit of autonomy. So what are the challenges that is not making this situation be fruitful? What is blocking it from happening?
I would say two things. Number one is the fact that these provisions that I mentioned, for instance, the idea that the autonomy be granted to the local governments and defended in the Constitution. And one way of doing that is by tinkering with Section 162(6), by doing away with the joint account and stating that their monies be sent direct into their account. That is number one. Number two is also by enacting a law and inserting it in the Constitution too about the qualifications and the requirements of being a chairman or a councillor in a local government. Because as it is, if you look at the caliber of people that constitute local government chairmen and councillors, it leaves room, for you to not to kind of wonder how the governors get an opportunity of that nature to manipulate them. And they get this leeway from these provisions that have been made that said it is the state laws that should enumerate the way a local government is structured, the running, the administration, the finances, and whatever of local governments. So in doing so, the governors are mindful of not bringing people that they can't control. They will bring in their cronies. They will bring in people, because you see, as this popular saying goes, he who pays the piper dictates the tone.
Indeed.
So the governors come in and dictate who becomes local government chairman. And then when there's a joint account, there's just no way anybody can challenge. If, for instance, it is stated that at the joint account meetings, these are the parameters, or these are the items on the agenda that should be handled. What aspects did you all agree that you should deduct your monies from? For instance, running of a state university, if I may mention that. Some state laws have it that when federation account drops for local governments, for the running of their state university, each local government should, agree to release 10%, some 2%, some 3% of their monies into the account. It should be remitted direct to the account of the university for the running of the university, because the university is a state university. So when it comes to admission, each state gets pro rata level and numbers of students, their students that will go to the university. So you can see the logic there. So if local government accounts come in and you deduct that 7% or that 10%, it's not, it's okay, it's perfect, because it's their own and they willingly agreed. So ditto, if they have orders of that nature, let's say there are 5 on the table, you now remove the 5 grounds or areas of agreement where they agreed that, yes, our monies be taken out and be used for the common good of all our citizens. But they remain the balance without being tinkered with kobo. No kobo should be touched. Now send it to them, to their various accounts.
I mean, we cannot overemphasize on what needs to be done when it comes to local government autonomy. But we'll just have to wait and see this first step that the federal government has taken and see how it would at least get to a point where Nigerians would feel and appreciate, the decision that the federal government has taken so far. Thank you so much, Professor Maxwell Gidado, for joining us to dissect, this situation today. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Same here.
All right, that was a Professor Maxwell Gidado, Senior Advocate of Nigeria and Professor of Law. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, it will be time for us to take a look at the front pages of the national dailies this morning.